Hi, I'm Ruban Selvanayagam from Property Solvers. If you're thinking about selling a commercial property, you probably already appreciate that the process can be notably different from selling a residential home. Whether it's a shop, office, industrial unit, warehouse, mixed-use building or development site, commercial transactions typically involve a much greater emphasis on leases, rental income, financing, planning, legal due diligence and investment returns. And as cash buyers and auctioneers, we've seen many commercial property owners underestimate just how much these factors can influence value, buyer demand, and ultimately the success of a sale. So in this video, I'll explain how commercial property buyers assess opportunities, what drives value, the common mistakes sellers make, and what we believe is one of the most effective ways to achieve a successful sale. Let's get into it. The first thing to understand is that commercial buyers are not all looking for the same thing. Some are investors looking for secure income, others are business owners looking for premises to operate from, and many are developers searching for opportunities to add value through refurbishment, repositioning, or redevelopment. Understanding which audience your property is likely to attract is one of the most important parts of the sales process. When selling a commercial investment property, buyers will often focus heavily on quality and security of the income being generated. The rent being paid, lease length, rent review provisions, repairing obligations, break clauses, and tenant covenant strength also all have a significant impact on value. A property occupied by a financially strong tenant on a long lease will often attract considerably more interest than a similar building with a weaker covenant or uncertain tenancy arrangements. If the property is vacant, the focus often shifts towards commercial rental demand, planning potential, redevelopment opportunities, and alternative uses. That's why two apparently similar commercial properties can sometimes achieve very different sale prices. One of the biggest mistakes commercial property owners make is failing to prepare sufficient information before marketing begins. Commercial buyers generally expect a significant amount of supporting documentation before committing to a purchase. In most cases, they'll want to review leases, rent schedules, service charge information, planning documentation, title records, surveys, environmental reports, EPC information, insurance policies, and a range of other supporting material. The more organised and transparent that information is, the easier it becomes for buyers to assess the opportunity and proceed with confidence. Pricing is another area where commercial sellers sometimes encounter difficulties. Unlike residential property, where comparable sales often provide a relatively clear benchmark, commercial buyers often approach valuation from a very different perspective. Many will analyse the property's current or likely income stream, the level of risk involved, and the return they're likely to achieve relative to other opportunities available in the market. That's where concepts such as yield, sometimes referred to as the capitalisation rate or cap rate, become important. Put simply, they're looking at the relationship between the income a property generates and the price being paid for it. As a result, a property producing £50,000 a year in rent, for example, may appear attractive or expensive depending on the level of yield investors are seeking for that particular asset type and location. It's also worth remembering that commercial buyers have access to an enormous amount of market intelligence these days. Many are reviewing opportunities on platforms such as Rightmove Commercial, LoopNet, commercial auction catalogues, whilst also drawing on market data providers such as CoStar, local comparables and sector-specific research to assess value and identify opportunities. As a result, your property is unlikely to be assessed in isolation. Buyers are often benchmarking it against competing opportunities elsewhere in the market before deciding where to deploy their capital. Another challenge is transaction risk. Open market commercial property sales can often take several months to progress, and there are usually far more moving parts than a typical residential transaction. Financing can become an issue, survey findings may raise concerns, solicitors may uncover title complications, restrictive covenants, or planning matters requiring further investigation. And in the case of investment properties, lease-related issues can sometimes become sticking points during negotiations. We've seen agreed sales that look straightforward at the outset become significantly more complicated as additional information emerges. It's also worth recognising how different commercial sectors perform differently depending on market conditions. Industrial and logistics property has generally attracted stronger investment demand in recent years, while some parts of the office and retail sectors have faced greater challenges. Mixed-use buildings and development opportunities can also attract strong interest, where buyers identify potential that others may have overlooked. Understanding where your property sits within the wider market is therefore extremely important. One final consideration is whether the property is being sold with vacant possession or with a tenant in place. Neither is necessarily better than the other. For investors, a strong tenant producing reliable income can be highly attractive. For owner-occupiers or developers, vacant possession may be preferable. Again, it comes back to understanding your likely buyer audience. And this naturally brings us to the question of route to market. Traditional commercial agency works perfectly well for many properties, particularly where there's a clearly identifiable buyer audience and sufficient time available. However, auctions have long been an established route for selling commercial property. Many active commercial investors regularly monitor auction catalogues and portals, looking for opportunities. They're accustomed to reviewing legal packs, analysing lease documentation, and making investment decisions based on the information available. For sellers, this can create a highly competitive environment where buyers effectively compete against one another rather than negotiate individually. The transparency of the process is also attractive. Buyers undertake their due diligence before bidding, and once the hammer falls, contracts are exchanged immediately. Appreciating the additional complexity involved in commercial transactions, longer completion periods and conditional auction arrangements can often be incorporated where appropriate. For some sellers, a direct cash sale may also be worth considering. At Property Solvers, we do purchase commercial and mixed-use properties directly, particularly where speed, certainty or convenience are the overriding priorities. As with residential property, the trade-off is typically price, but for certain owners and situations, it can be a sensible option. The key takeaway is this: successful commercial property sales are rarely determined by the building alone. They're driven by income, leases, tenant quality, market demand, development potential, and the quality of information available to buyers. The more effectively you prepare the opportunities and target the right audience, the greater your chances of achieving a successful outcome. At Property Solvers, we've helped owners sell a wide variety of commercial properties, mixed-use buildings, and development opportunities over the years, and are always happy to discuss the options available. A big thanks for watching. If you found this video useful, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more practical property and housing market insights drawn for over 20 years of experience in the sector. See you in the next one.